I'm going to just get a chance to, I think a lot of you already know Brian. So Brian Sider, Reverend Brian, I won't say this correctly, say your name right. Souder. Souder, I'm gonna get it right. He served as president CEO of Faith in Place, a nonprofit empowering people of diverse faiths and spiritualities to be leaders in the advancement of environmental and racial justice by providing resources to educate, connect, advocate for healthier communities. Brian was ordained in a Mennonite church and serves as adjunct professor at McCormick Theological Seminary, Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago, and Garrett Evangelical Seminary in Evanston, and teaching public ministry courses. So we're really glad to have you again. And I know Jeffrey was excited as I was from hearing your time.
Yeah, it's a real great joy to be here. What I want to do is give you just a brief update about what's going on with Faith in Place, but then go into my specific task that I've asked for today, which is give you the update on what's happening in Illinois, the Climate Equitable Jobs Act. So we'll cover all that, but let me just give you a broad picture. I even have government slides to show today, which I'm just like super excited about. But just to give you a sense of Faith in Place works with a network of faith communities, mosques, synagogues, temples, churches, you name it. People of faith and diverse spiritualities gathering on a regular basis. We want to work with them to help them become the environmental leaders in their neighborhood and their community. I like to say, you walk into a neighborhood and you see somebody on the street, you say, hey, who's leading the environmental movement in this area? Our vision is they point to the local church, mosque, synagogue, and temple and say, check out what the people of faith are doing. They are really leading the way. We have a number of programs that our partners get involved with, everything from energy programming, water programming, food and land use, high school youth programming to advocacy. Our network of faith communities are implementing those programs in the community and then also participate in our larger advocacy network. We have our top tier, our favorite part of our network are folks who have active green teams, which Connected Congregational is one of them. Green team at a faith community for us, you got to apply in. It's 3 or more dedicated people, usually it's like 6 to 12 is a typical green team size. Committee of individuals who are committed to making that vision happen at their local faith community, of helping their community to step further into that vision of being the environmental leader in their neighborhood. We coach those green teams. Our staff meet with those green teams once a month. How's it going? What can we do to be helpful? What resources can we connect? We currently have 296 active green teams. So that's 296 unique faith communities across Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana, where we work, that are part of this network, who are leading the way and driving momentum forward. We have an amazing staff team at Faith in Place. We've grown to 30 full-time staff at this point, spread across Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois, who have that task of just being in the community, working with local green teams, helping them figure out the resources available to advance environmental programming and advocacy. Some of our big initiatives this year is we have a $2 million grant to re-grant to our faith communities who are in what the government calls CJES communities. And what they mean by that is it's economically disadvantaged communities. And that grant can help them plant trees. So trees are magical. Trees help not only with the beauty of the neighborhood, but they reduce air pollution, they take carbon out of the atmosphere, they do all sorts of good. And the tree canopy just happens to be another inequity that we face, where communities that have been historically divested from don't have as a robust tree canopy. So we're going to be able to partner with our faith communities to do a lot of tree planting over the next 2 to 3 years. So we're working on getting that program together this year. We'll be announcing that this summer and start to take applications in. So that's a big initiative that we're working on. Faith in Place also works in the political side. We have our 501c3 nonprofit that does all of our education, coaching of our green teams. We also have a complementary sibling organization, the Faith in Place Action Fund, that they're 501c4, where we do all of our lobbying work, and we do a little bit of endorsement work for elected officials. We're working in a community that are really leading the way with our environmental vision at the state house or at the county government. We work on that local sort of level. So This year, we're planning on endorsing 2 or 3 candidates in each state that are local candidates. We really look for candidates who, one, are with us on all this stuff, understand their vision, understand the environmental programming, but 2, where they need our help. They're in a tight competitive race, and just having a few faithful folks out to help with phone calls, phone banking, door knocking, and really help push them over the finish line to win their races, so they can support renewable energy development if they're county commissioners, or if at the state level, support environmental policies like the one that we're going to talk about today, the Climate Equitable Jobs Act. I think that's my high level overview of Faith in Place and the Faith in Place Action Fund. I just wanted to step that's the background. And I've been the CEO there for 10 years, so I am now the old guy at the club. At the organization, I've been at the organization for 14 years, been involved in a number of policy campaigns throughout my time there. And the Climate Equitable Jobs law that passed was a result of, you could argue 5 years, 10 years of advocacy work to get this bill across the finish line. Now, we celebrated the passage of it in September of 2021. Someone help me with the math, 22, 23, 24, we're like almost 3 years in the hard work of implementation of this law. So let's talk about it. I will say, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to talk at you maybe for 10, 15 minutes, just to give you an overview. If something I'm saying doesn't make sense, feel free to interrupt and be like, can you clarify that? And then we'll open up at the end just for a broad ranging conversation together. So let's learn more about the Climate Equitable Jobs Act. So I'm using slides. The main implementer is the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. That's one of our state departments here in Illinois. You'll hear me refer to it as DCEO, or DECO is kind of the short language. So if you hear me talking fast and I say DECO or DCEO, I'm talking about the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. They are one of the many departments that is tasked with implementing the Climate Equitable Jobs Act. And we're going to focus in on the portions that they are tasked with, because I think they're really interesting and really something to be aware of. But for big picture, what is the Climate Equitable Jobs Act? It is comprehensive energy legislation. It centers equity and puts Illinois on track to achieve 100% renewable energy by 2050. Anybody know where the majority of our energy comes from in Illinois currently?
Coal.
Not correct.
Natural gas.
Not correct.
Is it nuclear?
It's nuclear. About 50% of our energy right now is nuclear, which is a carbon-free energy. So that counts as a carbon-free energy. The second largest is coal, and then natural gas, and now we're growing our wind and solar. So the goal is to end the coal and the natural gas and get Illinois' grid 100% powered by carbon-free electricity, which is the nukes, the wind, and the solar. But there's much more than that in the bill. You can see in this pie chart here, the bill not only is working on our power generation, but also on electric transportation, energy efficiency, renewable energy, energy access for solar for all. I want to focus in on the equitable workforce and business development in the state.
Is that what centers equity means?
Yep, and that's what we're going to dive deep into here. And let me just move this up here. So just kind of some benchmarks along the way, 40% renewable energy by 2030. We're in 2024 now. We're right about 16% today. So we have a long ways to go between today and 2030. 50% by 2040, 100% by 2050. A carbon-free power grid by 2045, closing all fossil fuel power plants, and then equitably grow the clean energy workforce to meet the demand of the clean energy technologies and services. Here's the big picture idea. We're investing in making all this wind and solar and energy efficiency happen. That means a lot of electrician jobs. That means a lot of pipe fitters, sheet metal jobs. That means we are going to have a big shortage of the individuals that we need. How do we grow that shortage? Well, we need to expand our clean energy workforce. Well, let's do that in an equitable way. There are folks who have high unemployment in their neighborhoods and their communities. How do we make sure they get access to this new growing green economy and benefit from the clean energy investments and good paying clean energy jobs? so that the awards in the workforce, the careers, the wealth creation opportunities are distributed equitably.
How do you go about that? What's,
We're going right into it, right into it. So we created a bunch of programs under CJO. So the equity focused workforce training programs, and we're gonna dive into each one of these in a little bit of detail, because I think it's really important for us as faithful folks, people in the community, to understand this and to know all this that's going on. So we have a Clean Jobs Workforce Network program, a Climate Works Pre-Apprenticeship program, the Energy Transition Navigator program, and a Returning Residents Clean Jobs program. I'm gonna tell you more about those programs in a second, but the idea is that you're training folks up, and they're coming in, and employers select or hire apprentices or entry-level workers, and they work on the clean energy projects funded by CJA and more. So first and foremost is the Clean Jobs Workforce Network, or what we call workforce hubs. We need to train and support people into these jobs. When I've worked on this for a long time. We passed a bill in 2016 that started this program. I created the Solar for All program in Illinois. One thing we didn't think through adequately in that is it's not just about training people, but it's really providing wraparound services so that they have what they need to do the job. Maybe they need affordable housing, maybe they need childcare for their children in order to get to the job, maybe they need transportation. Maybe somebody just needs access to a suit and a tie and a resume coach to get to the job, sort of thing. So this goal is that across Illinois, we have 13 workforce hubs that provide this training. There's a clean energy curriculum we've created, and we're funding this at 24 million a year plus 15 million in barrier reduction services. So those barrier reduction services are like the things I talked about: transportation, affordable housing, that sort of stuff. We want this to be delivered by community-based organizations. We want the community to really take the leadership of it, the community to connected to those that need jobs, to really be the leaders in it. We recruit participants, provide clean jobs training, provide robust wraparound supports, and job placement and transition support. That is going to be mostly on the non-union side of things, just growing that forward. And then on the union side, working through what's called pre-apprenticeship program. This is working with the IBEW, the pipe fitters, other sort of union jobs related to this, to get folks into the apprenticeship programs of the unions. So again, it's 10 million a year plus 6 million in barrier reductions, focused on the construction training with the clean energy focus, same sort of thing. Recruit participants, provide construction training, robust wraparound services, and then apprenticeship placement and transition support. We also then, though, realize that we need to be talking about this in the community. How do you let the community know? It's one thing to build workforce hubs, apprenticeship training programs, but how do people find out about it? How do people know that this is happening? So we have a separate Energy Navigator program where we're awarding funds through DCEO to community-based organizations to let people know about this program and to recruit them in. Increase awareness and participation, provide recruitment, enrollment, and engagement, in the 13 hubs across the state, and funded at 6 million a year. So when we're talking about, and then let me go on, the Returning Residents Clean Jobs program. So this is an initiative specific to Faith and Place. On the Faith and Place side, one thing that we are very passionate about is connecting the dots between mass incarceration and environmentalism. What do we mean by that? Mostly what we mean by that is that we know if someone comes out of prison and they have the training they need, the skills they need to get a job, a good paying job, get launched in a career, or to get a wealth creation opportunity, the likelihood of them returning into prison goes significantly down. And there's the recidivism rate in Illinois is very, very high. Recidivism meaning those that come out of prison and back up in prison. So providing that support services around that can be just revolutionary. So we created the Returning Residents Clean Jobs program. This is in partnership with the Department of Corrections, working when folks are 6 months from being released from prison. They enroll in this program and start getting the training they need to come out and to be ready to go into one of these clean energy job opportunities. Again, that is a portion of all this. So to give you a sense of where are these 13 regional hubs going to be? We got Chicago West Side, South Side, Joliet, Waukegan, Aurora, Rockford, Champaign, Peoria, Danville, Decatur, Carbondale, East St. Louis, Alton. There's a map there in case you don't know your Illinois geography well. You can see where all those are located. We don't want this to be just a Chicago thing. We want this to be a statewide sort of effort, and moving forward in that. So how is this structured? So the idea is, I said to you earlier, you know, we want folks in high unemployment areas to get employment opportunities. Well, how do we do that, right? Like, how do we know who is eligible? So we designed a law in what I think is a pretty radical, revolutionary sort of way, and we're in the mix of seeing if it's gonna work. So the way we designed it is, we divided up Illinois into a map, and we call them investment eligible communities. So a lot of data went into this map making of looking at communities that disproportionately have been divested from, have high unemployment areas. And we've labeled those communities as investment eligible communities. So what happens practically here is you go onto the map, you enter your address, and you find out, am I in an investment eligible community or not? If you are in an investment eligible community, you immediately become what's known as an equity eligible person. We call it an EEP, but I'll try to stay away from all the acronyms here, because the list gets long, but an equity eligible person, one qualification for becoming an equity eligible person is you live in investment eligible community. Another way that you're an equity eligible person is that you are coming out of the prison system, or we say returning residents is the language that we use there. A third way is if you're a foster care alumni. So foster care children who graduate from the foster care system are a high likelihood for unemployment, high likelihood for prison. Again, access to a career, support services can make a difference. So we call that a foster care alumni. Or perhaps you're working in natural gas, you're working in coal, and because those things are shutting down, you've been displaced by that, you become an equity eligible person. So these are or you graduate from you go into one of the Clean Job Workforce hubs, you get the training, you graduate from that, you also are an equity eligible person. Why is it important? That equity eligible person's characteristic, we are requiring today, every solar project in Illinois has to have 10% equity eligible persons on the job. That 10% wrap goes up to 30% by 2030. So if you want the state subsidy to do your solar project, you have to meet what we call the minimum equity standard, which is how many equity eligible persons you have on the job. We learned this because in 2016, when we passed this law, we didn't have any sort of standard requirement on the companies to get the state subsidy to do the solar work, the wind work, and they just didn't hire folks. So this is kind of the, not a carrot, but a stick to get the carrot for the companies to do this. So companies are very concerned right now today that are building solar, that want to get their solar renewable energy credit, which is administered by the Illinois Power Agency. They have to show they're meeting their minimum equity standard, which today is 10% equity eligible persons. You understand the tapestry of the law in that way? I saw a question. Did I get to it, or did you want to ask?
You can wait.
Okay. So, pretty comprehensive, and the way the law is designed is it's all gotta be working together, right? If you're not training the right people to get them out into the workforce, the solar companies are gonna be mad because they're not people that they need to meet their minimum equity standard. But this is when we're talking about equity, this is the one of the very few laws in the nation that I know about that actually has a very real mechanism to drive equity forward. We're not just talking pie in the sky. We want to drive equity and bring employment to communities. We're saying, if you want to do business in Illinois, these are the standards you have to comply by. So just a quick review. So we have equity focused economic development programs. I didn't highlight these, but just so you know, there's also focus on more on the wealth, what we call the wealth creation side. So starting your own business and growing your own business. There's some programs put in place that if you're an equity eligible person and you start your own solar company, opportunities available for you, program opportunities to help you grow that business over time. And that's those three opportunities there. That way we have clean energy contractors. You can get the status in Illinois of an equity eligible contractor, which allows you, if you're an equity eligible contractor, you immediately get access not only to the existing subsidies, you don't have to have a minimum equity standard, but also there's an additional bucket of subsidies available just for an equity eligible contractor to get to do their solar development, in the case of solar. So we got incubator programs for those contractors, again, funded at 21 million a year. The Clean Energy Prime Contractor Accelerator Program at 9 million a year, and an equity eligible future grant program at 34 million a year. So real dollars, again, to grow out this equity portion of the Climate Equitable Jobs Act. You can see here just some different sort of charts that kind of lay this out, of how things kind of work together. And one last slide, this is the last slide I just wanted to show you, was just the funding for this. So you can see the workforce hubs, the 13 hubs, 24 million a year plus 15 million in the barrier. The union side, the Climate Works pre-apprenticeship program is 10 million a year plus 6 million in barrier reduction funds. You got your contractor incubator programs, your equitable energy future grant program, your energy transition navigator, that's the education arm, how the word get out about it, your returning resident program, and then the Primes contractor accelerator. So with all that fast talking, that's the big picture overview of what I wanted you to know about the Climate Equitable Jobs Act, not only trying to hit the 100% renewable energy in Illinois by 2050, but how we plan to grow the workforce in an equitable way over time. Let me pause there. I said a lot about Faith in Place and what we're doing. One of our main initiatives, which is this Climate Equitable Jobs Act. What questions do you have, or what comments, or anything that I missed? Yeah.
How are we gonna measure the success?
Yeah, so in the law.
What was the question?
The
How
question,
do we measure success?
yeah.
I
Well,
mean, as we go along, not just waiting for 2050.
the first, so there'll be a number of metrics, but let me just talk about the one I'm most worried about today. So all of this hinges on the Clean Job Workforce Network program being successful. That's those 13 workforce hubs across Illinois. It's been almost 3 years since we passed the law. We don't have a single Clean Job Workforce Hub up and running and delivering programs today. Trying, the Department of Commerce Economic Opportunity is working very hard. They're in negotiation with 5 different sites to try to finalize contracts. 7 of the other sites have applications in, and they're trying to support to get better applications in, which credit the DTO, they aren't just accepting applications that they don't think are gonna be successful. But they're really prioritizing groups in the community working together. And it turns out, I don't know if you experienced this in Winnetka or not, but you know, groups tend to be a little bit more territorial, they're collaborative. DCO is really trying to get folks to collaborate so we can offer the full range of services to the community where they need it. We're working really hard as Faith in Place in Danville, Illinois right now, because we've had 0 applications to DCEO to run the program out of Danville. So we're partnering with some of the churches there, having community conversations, trying to figure out who might want to apply to this, what's the barriers to application, trying to support that way. But if we don't get these things built soon and start getting people coming out of these programs, the minimum equity standard for solar contractors continue to go up. You know, there's a tension there. Like, we want to get the state rec, but you all aren't producing. So the law has to work together. So first measure of success, we get all 13 workforce hubs up and running, starting to deliver people who are trained or getting hired by the workforce.
So how does a workforce hub work? I mean, how is that gonna, what's involved? How many people do you need? You need a lot of, just need lots of people, what training do people have to have? And
Yeah.
how do they reach out?
So it's meant to be more bottom up than top down, so that the money is set aside. So each workforce hub knows that they're applying in to a certain set of funding every year. And then they have some requirements in the clean energy curriculum, which includes solar, HVAC, wind, geothermal, and a whole bunch of other clean energy sort of things I'm not even thinking of right now. They had to pick kind of 2 specialties, at least 2 specialties, and then train towards those specialties and start to graduate individuals from that competitive application. So they have some freedom there. The emphasis of the competitive application, though, get people trained and give them the necessary services they need to thrive in the workplace, sort of thing.
So you gotta, on one hand, you gotta find somebody to do the training, and then you've gotta find people who will be will they come for that training.
Before and after,
Yeah.
and during, yeah.
During, because it's,
Yeah.
so you have to have the funding.
And then
I see the complexity of it.
it's very complex, and then also success is gonna look like, are we gonna hit our 50% renewable energy by 2030? 100% renewable, those are also very clear, sort of like, there's the goals of, that we have in electric transportation, the goals that we have in our power grid. Hitting those, but then also our workforce related goals.
Are you thinking that the switch in renewables primarily gonna be electric? I mean, you've talked about nuclear, but I was confused. So let's say, so you're looking at more jobs in renewable energy, you're specifically primarily in increasing our electric grid, is that? Or
Yes.
maybe solar, I get solar panels, but I'm just curious, I mean, as a broad level,
Yeah, no, wind and solar is where we wanna cover that remaining 50%. So we have the 50% nuclear, wind and solar will be the remaining 50%. That will look different, right? So like in solar, you have utility scale solar, which is 100 acres of solar panels. We have a community solar program where you can subscribe to a community solar project. In your homes, like you just think about your own home, you have probably natural gas to your stove and furnace. So there's programs to electrify your home so that your home is
Sure.
running off of a
Okay,
heat
yeah.
pump, geothermal.
So,
So those are all jobs, right? Like to have someone come in and put a heat pump in your house, that's a job. Put panels on your roof, that's a job. Put panels on the field, that's a job. That sort of stuff.
so are you seeing all these companies that don't wanna come to Illinois, and because obviously it's a huge market, so there's all these companies that wanna come to Illinois to help us do that, and you're trying to train this, or do you feel this helps bring employers to Illinois,
Yeah,
or is this telling employers to go to Indiana, because I don't have to deal with the bureaucracy, because I want this to work, but I also think Illinois has a history of sort of not encouraging business to come here.
yep, I think you were naming the tension. So I will tell you, solar developers are going like crazy here in Illinois.
Okay.
23 to 24, June to June, is the first year of the 10% minimum equity standard. So I get calls every week, because folks know me as a person that's behind some of this.
Right, yeah.
From solar companies being like, expressing upset, their concerns. So we're trying to work with those solar companies so that it hit that, but as it ramps up, it becomes a real tension because many of those companies are like, how are we gonna hit this, especially if DCO is behind
Right.
on creating the workforce side. We do have built to a law and exemption.
That's good, okay, yeah.
But we
It is
purposely.
complicated, yeah.
Yeah, we
I mean, I appreciate what you're doing.
Does this program like work with and feed people into existing union and utility training programs? Is that the idea? So you get them to a certain point and then you'd hand them off to ComEd or
Yep.
whoever and they bring them in through their.
Yeah, so that would specifically be on the Climate Works pre-apprenticeship program. So the idea is, I want to be an apprentice in the electrical field. I can go to that program. Hire 360 is a group is going to get this funding to do this.
So it's like kind of a pre-apprenticeship, just
Yep.
get basic skills up to the point where you can hand them off.
to those
those
folks. Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
So to Jen's question, the goal would be to have an extra 10,000 people employed in this sector from equity neighborhoods.
Yep.
Is that, and so you're gonna track that, and if you find that employers are not, biting on this, because the employers are the ones at the job, then you would have to change the process and whatnot, but if that, you go.
Right, and I'm thinking about Danville, of course, as well, and I'm thinking. I would think that the unions and the prison systems would be your champions for this.
Absolutely.
And so it's hard, there's been a pandemic, but that excuse is going away for a lot of things now. I'm just curious what the barriers are, because I would have thought those two organizations that are already in place would just grab this thing and run with it, and you would have too many applicants to manage.
Yeah, I wish that was the case. I don't have much positive to say about unions and the Department of Corrections when it comes to this.
Yeah.
We have had nothing but this resistance. So part of what you're seeing here is when you meet resistance is trying to understand why is there resistance? And how can we incentivize moving beyond that? Part of that is this training program set up. And then another part of it is the mandate on the companies that are employing that they have to meet these minimum equity. So that's why we went that route. Otherwise, we would have been way ahead on this stuff. So that's enough to say.
Yeah, yeah.
The union, I mean, the unions have a strong bias in favor of taking care of their existing their existing members with the most seniority. And bringing a lot of, new folks in at lower pay grades,
It's a difficult process.
that's not who has power within the union.
But new jobs will mean eventually.
Yeah,
Union members.
but they're not really good at seeing that.
So let's talk about the employer side. I think of Invenergy, which is based here, and downstate, isn't Rivian still making a bunch of electric trucks? I hope they would like to get behind this.
Yeah,
But you would think the companies themselves would say, oh, we will do our own little training program. Because we have the most need for those workers, they're the most incentivized to do it. It's because there's conflict within the unions, they have to deal with that, or is it just, it's just that they don't want to spend the outlay of money, because it sounds like there's a lot of money for them.
Yeah, that's like this one.
yeah, I think,
That's gonna be a bargain for function, that training. You gotta go through
You're
the,
bargaining for it.
yeah, those are all bargain for jobs, so you can't just decide to train them, you gotta go through the union.
and there's some very real, and understandable frustration on behalf of employers. Because this process is full of red tape and bureaucracy that's annoying. And so there's some real frustration there. There's also, I think folks are finding people to hire to meet the current demand. I don't think that's gonna be the case though in the marketplace in the next 5 years, next 10 years. So this is gonna become more and more a real issue, and maybe more incentives will be driven to do training programs because you need those more people. So those are some really real dynamics and frustrations that I think employers are having.
And I can see, and I wonder what the role of green team of a church would be. I'm related to the church I retired from and went out in Wheaton. And we're going to the church in Blue Allen. And here, all three have green teams. Blue Allen has 35 people who work on the green team. They got a substantial group.
Yeah.
And this group here is very active. The green team's strong and meet almost every month, and you see the cleaning up the property. But mostly what green teams think, we can do things to help people be more conserving of energy on themselves, from our church or the community. They're less focused on making a difference in, at least around the three I know about, they're less focused on making a difference in the state. In a project like this, so I don't, is there a role for them in a project like this, or?
Yes, I definitely, and you're preaching my sermon, so thank you, that's good. Because my passion is, well, you all are ahead of the game, so let me just say, when I go to a lot of faith communities, give guest speeches, sermons, and those that have children's stories before the sermon, and I don't do the children's story, take a guess of what the children's story on Earth Sunday is almost always about.
Recycling?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, recycling is great, but I'm kind of over it, so. So this is what gets me fired up, right? Like, we're talking about real people's lives, real career opportunities, while reducing climate emissions, one of the biggest existential threats that we're facing today, right? And for us as people of faith, we think in social justice terms. And I think our green teams, I would love them to be thinking much bigger and much broader and thinking much more in kind of, how do we partner with other green teams that get our elected officials to think in this realm? That they don't just need to go out and pass a greenhouse gas reduction bill, but they can do it in a way that's transformational to the poor that we seek to serve as our faith communities, right? And I think this is a model for that. And so ways green teams can get involved now is, Faith in Place organizes advocacy campaigns where we push and pressure both our government administrations and our legislators, when the time's right, we can't go to DCEO today. Cause I happen to know they are working as hard as they possibly can to make this work. Now, I wish the governor gave it more of a priority, because I think that would help, but, there's some sensitivities there, but there's moments where we leverage our green team network and be like, we need to all stand up and work on this stuff. We're doing a lobby day in Springfield on May 9th as a community, where we're working on some bills that would advance some of our goals here a little further. We've learned some things that need to be cleaned up. So we're working on a power sector bill, we're working on a clean heat bill that would help with electrification goals and stuff like that. So there is a power of a network of green teams that Faith in Place helps coordinate, working together and also sharing together, we're right now, we have one green team in Danville, we're like, we need more green teams in Danville. Obviously, the infrastructure there isn't what it needs to be to get this program to be successful. How do we get more people involved, that sort of stuff. So I hope that kind of.
Yeah, that's good, because I think that's the next step for a lot of people, I think Glen Allen is probably already involved in advocating.
Which church in
Glen Allen, First Congregation.
Yeah.
And then, Tom Roach is he didn't get to come last week, he's gonna go on that time to come back, and speak. He's head of that team, nuclear engineer, worked with nuclear energy.
Okay.
So then we have, the team in Cleveland that's very small, but they did a really good job of thinking through the church and people awareness about local things, but never got politically involved. And here, you've got people politically connected, but I don't know, we could probably do more.
Well, and I'll tell you very practically,
Jennifer can tell you that.
State Representative Bob Morgan, who I think probably represents Winnetka here, is that right?
Yeah. Well, that is.
No,
He's
Yeah.
maybe further north.
no, I think that's okay.
Are you in Robin Gables this week?
Yes.
Yeah, Robin Gale.
So it doesn't matter, they both work. Robin Gable and Bob Morgan are great environmental champions.
Yeah.
But I promise you, neither one of them are paying attention to this. And if they knew about this, and then there was an urgency, like, hey, DCO is behind on implementing, they would start to have conversations with the powers that be, because they're better messengers, right?
Right.
It'd be like, hey, I'm hearing from my green teams in my district that the workforce hubs are delayed. What's going on? They would,
I assumed too much, I was too optimistic, now Gable's gotta hear from us.
yeah, I mean, I think, and again, Robin Gable's a champion for us
Yeah,
in that environment.
Right.
Huge supporter and made siege it happen, right? But she's got so much going on, I don't think she's probably aware that, the DCO, maybe she is, maybe, but she's probably not hearing from people in her district where people are facing, we really care about the returning residents program. And we don't see the Department of Corrections is doing anything. What's going on? I mean, a what's going on question from a constituent group to a champion.
Yeah, I like that. It's very specific, very focused. I
Right.
know what we would be talking about. And I think most people are pretty, like me, I'm even intimidated. I begin to get into an advocacy position that I'm educated enough, like I could stand and tell, or even write. I mean, I occasionally write those letters. But it's very difficult unless you're in the community that's teaching you that, giving you the resources for it.
That's that's the mission of Faith in Place, right there. Yeah, help you do that. And
direct us.
I think it's so powerful, just knowing a lot of state reps and state senators, to have them out here at the church, to get to know you, but to hear some of the various, we're really passionate to make sure siege is successful in the equity provisions. And then and it doesn't have to be like, here's our request. It can really be like, how's it going? That, just them hearing that and the hundreds of things they hear every week, and the issues that are happening and things are just hearing that from a constituents that they know. So I'm gonna say one more thing, because I get going on this. My vision, my vision is that when a state rep gets asked about any sort of environmental legislation, that they say, that sounds like an interesting idea. Let me check with the Faith in Place green teams in my district to see what they have to say. But I think that is where the real sort of power and change making can happen. We really define them. Yeah.
So I can think of how you do that. Would you have people from the green team here, talk to people, the other green teams in the area and say, hey, can we get together? Let's focus on one of these issues and, talk to our different reps.
Right now, I'm thinking we need to get Brian in more communities of faith around the North Shore. Because it sounds like the way we help is by asking that question.
That's right.
Using our leverage
Right.
in connections, to ask those questions, to bring the issue to focus, to the people that can really move this forward.
Yeah, CJ, now you're reminding me, there's something really specific to that point. Thanks, Steve. Right after, well, this is about 3 or 4 years ago, 6 churches from Evanston to Winnetka just started something called the Social Justice Group. I was after George Floyd. And now our anti-racism ministry is going to rebrand a little bit, but jobs equity is racial justice.
Yeah.
And so these churches in Evanston and Wilmette and Kenilworth and Winnetka try to meet at least once a month. And they all should know.
Yeah, no, I should know about this program, and be raising that up to their local electeds. I can't emphasize enough how much. It's one thing if I do it with Robin Gable, she knows me, she likes me. It's just a completely different thing when it's folks in the community were like, hey, we really care about this equity piece.
Yeah.
And we're part of, this is not only a part of our green mission, but our social justice, our anti-racism, our equity mission. What's happening?
Yeah.
And then you get the update, but even the conversation stops there with your legislator, it's in their mind. And the next time they meet with the governor's office, next time they meet with the speaker's office, the next time they meet with the Senate president's office, they're like, hey, what's going on? And just that level of questions makes things more of a priority, and when things are more of a priority in the bureaucracy, more red tape gets blown through. That's what I want to see happen.
Of course, the governor's pretty busy this year, and will
Yeah.
always. Have you met with Don Harmon very much?
Yeah, Don is very aware of the work. Again, it's difficult for someone in the Senate President, Speaker of the House, Governor's office, if they aren't hearing from kind of key constituents, which for them, for the Speaker and the President, is their caucus, right? It's their Democratic elected members that they're looking out for, protecting, trying to get reelected. So that's the voice they're most listening to. They're not listening to the people places.
Well, sure,
Yeah,
the governor knows what Oak Park residents want.
Right.
That preaching to the choir, but if he knows maybe which downstate members of his caucus could use a little more, communication.
That will be more effective, I think, at this point. And because last week, 2 weeks ago, I was at Unity Temple in Oak Park. You kind of wonder who their rep is.
So let's pass to what's not, are you saying that, because you have all these grants and stuff that you showed on the slide, is this bill is not passed, or all of it?
Everything is passed and in the works, yep, that I showed you.
Okay, so the advocacy is just to use the money that's sitting there untouched.
And to prioritize it and to, by any means necessary, make it happen, make it successful, to hit the metrics of success.
And have you, I do a lot of work in education, what about like making sure high school graduates try to go get a certification in this area, or even if they don't graduate from high school, that whole route, or trade schools or community colleges, so those are set up arguably to help workforce create jobs and careers, as opposed to, the separate hub, which I love the idea. It sounds like you're having a hard time getting it started.
Yeah, so just to clarify there, community colleges are allowed to apply in to be the workforce hub, so like, in Peoria, ICC is running the program.
I just think that would be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
They have a separate, so.
Yeah, you've got strong community,
And then you would support that or help them do that.
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
in tandem, so rather than separate, because it may be that you're trying to set these up separately rather than using or being aware of current infrastructure.
Do we know data, Brian, in terms of how many? What was it, eligible employees are coming out of community colleges?
So the contractors specifically, the equity eligible contractors?
Or even just the people trained to go into the jobs to fulfill the 10% requirement?
So the folks that are getting trained now to be as equity eligible. Trainees, which is different than the equity eligible person. So,
Okay.
If a company decided, hey, we just need to hire 5 more people that are equity eligible.
Yeah.
They could go do that and train them themselves.
Right.
But to get the trainees out of the program, the only training that's happened now is from what we passed in 2016 under the Future Energy Jobs Act. And that is mostly led by community colleges,
Okay.
across the state, but it's a much smaller scale. And then we're trying to build these workforce hubs to increase the number of trainings.
I would think community colleges, they already have the educators, they already know how to organize, so I think they would be the place to focus these.
Yeah, so a couple, I mean, we can go down this road a little bit if you want, so, 'cause we have history working with the community colleges since we passed the Future Energy Jobs Act, which was a small version of this program in 2016. Like unions, community colleges are in the same camp in that, the history of working with people of color isn't great. And so this is a barrier, and it's a barrier both for individuals of color who want to go into those programs, having just kind of all sorts of history and things that didn't go well. And this, again, this works with both the unions and the community colleges. So I think our community colleges are growing in that area. I don't know if our unions are, but our community colleges, I think, are, and I think they're learning from it. There's another dynamic with community colleges is difficult. And I'll give you an example of ICC and ISU, or not ISU, yeah, well, ICC and ISU, they're not, ISU is not a community college, but those two institutions in central Illinois, they don't want to work together in practice. And so part of the demand of these programs is we need you to work together because we need the coverage in Peoria and Wilmington for this workforce hub. And so there's a little bit of a
Like they come to like the page, like college next to it.
yeah.
It's an amazingly strong school.
These are just some of the real problems and opportunities. I think we're gonna get through it. Because there's real money on the table, there's real opportunities. But it is a barrier. It is something when you're doing this work, it's just hard.
But I think our to-do is pretty easy and straightforward. And
Yeah.
that is ask the questions.
Yeah.
The people who can then ask the questions to help
Right.
get this stuff moving.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, what about, well, two questions. One is equity, could you say equity would be like for somebody who's without a job, new in the country, or perhaps just speaking as in terms of refugees, period. Would it be okay to say that equity pays them to learn that they actually have a job if they sign up for Green Team? And then the idea that your organization and Green Teams, hopefully they spread to all the states, remind me that you have the passion that these kids around the world have. And in fact, it feels equal to me. It feels desperate and like, let's go.
Let's go. That's exactly what it is.
And so regardless of the bureaucracy of all the problems of recruiting, because it seems like participants are your biggest hurdle. So the comment really has to do with refugees and payment.
Yeah.
And then I love the idea to equate you with who's our star from Norway or Denmark.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are a group of adults working with you kids. We agree with you.
Right.
But action, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. So, the conversations around refugees, migrants, and employment is a very robust one. And I don't know, I don't have the technical expertise to know how that relates to the workforce hubs. But I could find out more. I know we work with the Chicago Community Trust. I know they're hosting some conversations around this, which is in Chicago specifically. How do we make sure that migrants get access to the jobs that they need? One, the barriers there with visas and different things like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good point. They have the visas. I mean, my wife's working with someone through World Relief one-on-one, and she's from Venezuela. She taught at college level physics. She's working a manual job in a factory, and she gets sick one more time, you'll pick her up.
Yeah.
I mean, she needs, it's humiliating, her skills are really being used. But she needs a place there's huge need to connect people with their skill sets.
Yeah.
And it's just not happening. I don't think, from what I can tell, I think World Relief gets very frustrated And they're working very hard to find these jobs, just something to get them to be able to survive.
Interesting.
She's got a visa, work visa, right?
I advise a company called Rice Kit, they're a startup, and they're trying to create the Indeed, if you will, or LinkedIn sort of job platform for the folks in high unemployment neighborhoods. And so the idea is, you know, kind of one, the problem we face is that all the services you need are so discrete. You know, like if you're a migrant in Chicago right now, go over here for this, go over there for this, you know, so it's trying to like, tell us who you are, what your needs are, and what you're looking for, and then it can kind of, the software does this magic thing that puts you on a path in that direction. I think they would love to talk to someone like Wolverine, because they have clients now like the Urban League, Rush Hospital, who are looking to employ people, but looking to streamline kind of the wraparound services and different things. So,
Sometimes language is a barrier, like her, she doesn't speak great English,
you know,
so it's
language
huge
services,
barrier.
so
Yeah.
I'd love to talk more about that.
Yeah,
My joke is always, you need a good admin.
I think it's more than a joke.
Maybe
It's-
I'll
it's the
go
truth.
An au gratis.
right.
What's the source of the funding of the dollars that you put up?
Yeah, so this is important. It's you all who are paying rates. So when you pay your electric bill, there's a line item that goes into all this funding. So it's ratepayers dollars, which is different than your tax dollars. It's a ratepayer dollar based on your usage of electricity. So you as the church are paying for electricity, you as homeowners are paying for electricity, businesses are paying for electricity. So it's ratepayer dollars that's funding all this.
In the scheme of things, in terms of our total budget, it doesn't seem like a lot of dollars. Right? When you add all those millions together, it's not a rounding error, but it's not. You know, it's not a significant percentage. It seems like a relatively modest investment in an extraordinarily important goal.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And the investments I'm showing you, this to be clear, all on the workforce
Yeah,
equity side.
yeah,
I'm not showing you the investments that go into the SREC pots.
you sure.
That, you know, when a solar company develops a project and they bid in for their SREC to support that. So that SREC pot, SREC is solar renewable energy credit.
Mhm.
That's what's bringing all the solar companies to Illinois, because they know if they develop a project, not only do they get the electricity back, but they get a big subsidy of the SREC.
That's also a bill line item?
That's from the same
Flows through
line
that
item,
way.
yeah.
This is the same, just out of curiosity, I looked, is it the same line item or is it?
I think it is, yeah. I think you'll see it. I forget what it's called on your bill, but I'm pretty sure it's the same line item.
Never look at those since they're not optional.
And then the Illinois Power Agency oversees that pot of money. So every year they come out with their, based on what the law says, here's how much money we're putting into these various different types of buckets. So they're, you know, there's a different bucket for residential versus utility versus commercial solar versus the solar for all program versus the equity eligible contractor program.
So it seems like you have two main matrices of success. One is how much renewable, what's the conversion to renewable energy? And then how many jobs were created in Illinois, and 20% of them, or 30 should be in equitable neighborhoods.
Yep.
So it would be nice to sort of, why not put that up there? Why don't we say right now, the goal is 30,000 new jobs next year, and how are we doing? Because if you can't even get the hub started or whatnot, then, you know, not because of any, you're a brilliant guy and you have a lot, so what's the problem? So in other words, the problem really isn't that we don't have funding or we have some people, you know, approve this. The problem seems like we can't get the jobs, you know, filled, or here are the companies. I don't know enough about what's going on, but
No,
this is a brilliant option. I mean, education, you don't have the money, but here you have the money and you can't get people to sign up for your programs. There's something's amiss.
you know, it's a good slide. Though.
You know, and so I would say this is my dashboard and I want, you know, 5,000 jobs next year. And if you can only get 500,
Then we can adjust.
why, you know, I don't understand why. I really don't understand.
I don't either.
I don't, I mean, if I,
Well, I'm hearing you say things like unions are very fixated in how they work and they're very controlled. And how, and what they want. They have a lot of things they're afraid that will happen, so they're not very open to new ideas, because they live in that fear. And it's very hard to break that down. And you've got just organizational problems to get something outside the unions to pull people.
Right, so
How
maybe
you get
that,
something started,
You know,
so I just think about how hard it is for green teams. Churches, my experience, churches, are so invested in just maintaining what they're doing.
But
And
let me
maintaining it,
clarify though,
connecting, it's really hard.
I heard community-based, I didn't hear church-based.
Right,
So
Right.
you could be a community organization in Peoria and still be eligible to put together an application, correct?
right.
Right, as opposed to a church's green team, how about Go Green Winnetka, Go Green Wilmette, or, you know, there's.
you know,
Team. all
Yeah,
over
so
the state.
something that's a community-based organization or a collective of churches coming together to form a community-based organization toward a
Well,
particular goal.
we have a partner in Rockford, Pastor Hightower, who has a CDO of his church, and they're getting the Rockford Award to do the hub, so we're really excited about
Oh,
that.
that's right. Well, a really very cool, a green team directly is directly involved.
Yeah, I mean, they have more of a kind of a CBO structure, they have a church and then they have affiliated CBO that helps with that. But that's a great, you know, yeah, that's a great opportunity.
It's just so difficult for churches to go connect and consistently show up to a meeting with other churches and say, we're gonna do something here. We're gonna really focus it, and we're gonna work it till we got it done. Because just getting people on the same page or at the meeting, well, we got this going on in our church. I mean, now we got real changes taking place here.
Right.
And we're doing our best, and I think the church is doing its best. I don't care if Chad, both pastors are leaving, and we're looking for pastors. We are gonna start this stuff while they're gone, we're gonna get going with it. It's really hard for church to do that. You've got to have deliberate leadership, and I'm really proud why I see this church having more of that than most churches. But I think it's a challenge, to work with green teams. I love the idea of one issue, one focus, go after it. Because then once you have a success, you build on it.
Right. By the way, we coach our green teams that the best time to get involved and active is when there's a pastoral transition. Because the typical logic is, we need to wait for the new pastor, and we're like, no, the new pastor's gonna come in and find out about the good work you're doing and let it amplify it. That's the goal.
That's what I tell this church, they've got a vision that they're about likely to pass, and they work really hard on. Hey, you don't have to come in, pastor, and jumpstart, you don't have the Messiah emblem like Superman on your chest. No, they're already going, man, you just gotta help them
And the pastor can pass it,
It's exciting.
shepherd it along, and I guess.
stay ahead of that. So, it's a real plus feather in the cap of this church when they start their search.
Well, I think we're at time. Any final questions or?
Anyone? Junior?
Yes, I have one. At the beginning, you indicated that you're a 501c3, but you also have another
Yep.
501 something or other.
C4, yeah.
Four.
Yeah.
So is it 501c4 that's doing all this work with the state?
Good question. So it's all the 501c3 because once a bill passes, it's no longer considered by the IRS as lobbying. It's just considered you're working on the current piece of legislation and implementing it. So that you can do all that on an education basis on a 501c3.
So that it could be done in a 501c3 as a church?
Yes, absolutely.
As an educational thing, and then encourage people to, on their own, contact their representative?
You can contact your representative even as a C3 and say, we care about this program. Thank you for voting for it. What's happening with it?
With the oversight of the church?
Yep. It's at no point are you saying, vote for this person, or you're not even saying, and you are allowed to do a little bit of this as a church, but you're not even saying vote yes on this pending legislation. You're just saying, we care about this existing law and how it's being implemented.
Okay.